So, I've been a fan of David Bowie for a long time. He was my favorite rock and roll musician. I grew out of rock and roll in my early 20s and got into Bill Evans and piano jazz, and now I really just love Haydn string quartets. But I've still liked Bowie this whole time and have come to appreciate him in a more general way. He's Dionysus from space. In other words, he's Apollo and Dionysus at the same time. Anyway, I'm making this video in honor of Bowie's death a year ago on January 10th, 2016. I belong to a David Bowie Facebook group, and all of a sudden, everyone in the group was apparently inconsolably upset, and soon after, a bunch of my friends were posting the same type of things. And all the time, I'm sitting here, having read Plato and listening to Bowie's new album, Blackstar, released on his birthday 2 days before his death, thinking, David Bowie is dead, and his death was so great. He died so well. Dying well is incredibly tough to do, but he did it. Now, before I explain what I mean, let me say that I understand that people who knew Bowie should be sad by his loss. I saw recently that Bowie himself only knew that his illness was terminal some 3 months before he died. Now, he died at 69 years old, which, although it isn't that old, it isn't that young either. What I'm saying is that people that are upset about Bowie's death should think it through and find some satisfaction in the fact that he died so well. So, Plato. His dialogue, the Phaedo, is the one that contains Socrates' death scene. Socrates was sentenced to death for what I'll call impiety, and several of his friends came to visit him on the day of his execution. One of his friends being Phaedo, for whom the dialogue is named. Socrates was an old man, 70 years old if I recall. Since it was the occasion of his execution, everyone who came to see him wanted to hear Socrates speak about his views of the soul and the afterlife. But they were reluctant since they thought that Socrates may not want to speak about them in his present sad situation. Socrates smiled and said, "It looks as if I should have a hard job to convince the world in general that I don't consider my present situation a sad one, when I can't convince even you two, who are so afraid that I am in a more disagreeable plight now than I ever was before. And I fancy you must think me a poorer sort of prophet than the swans. For they, when they realize that they have to die, sing more, and sing more sweetly than they have ever sung before, rejoicing at the prospect of going into the presence of that God whose servants they are. Though indeed human beings, because of their own fear of dying, malign them, making out that their departing song is a painful lament for death, they fail to reflect that no bird sings when it is hungry or cold or feels any sort of pain, not even the nightingale itself, nor the swallow, nor the hoopoe. Of course, the story is that these birds sing a lament because of their pain, but I don't believe that is true either of them or of the swans. What I think is that, belonging as they do to Apollo, they are prophetic creatures who foresee the blessings in store for them in Hades, and therefore sing with greater delight on that last day than ever before. And as for me, I count myself a fellow servant of the swans, dedicated to the same God, and favored by my master with prophetic power equal to theirs. Nor am I more sorrowful than they in departing this life. No, so far as that goes, you should say what you will and ask what you will, so long as the prison authorities of Athens permit you. So, Socrates, like a swan, will sing his most beautiful song now that he knows his death is approaching. His discussion of the soul and the afterlife will be his Swan-Song. Now, I will grant that I don't know that David Bowie was joyous in his final days like Socrates was, but Socrates didn't die of liver cancer, and we can glimpse some explicit joy in some of the B sections on Bowie's last album. Clearly, I am focusing on the song part of the Swan-Song. I can say that a car and a truck are similar, even though they aren't exactly the same. Bowie's last album was his Swan-Song. He finished his great album knowing he was facing death. Just put yourself in that situation. You are working on your comeback album, and you find out that you are terminally ill, but you still complete it anyway, and it's a great album. Certainly your best album for quite a while. Furthermore, whereas Blackstar ranks among Bowie's greatest albums, it is quite clear that Socrates' discussion of the soul in the Phaedo was not his greatest discussion of the soul or his greatest discussion in general. Certainly, his account of the soul in Plato's Republic is far more powerful and developed and puts the Phaedo discussion to shame. Now, we could attempt to make the claim that Plato's Socrates in the Phaedo is more like the historical Socrates, whereas in the Republic he is less like the historical Socrates. But that is problematic since Phaedo isn't really that early of a dialogue for Plato. On the other hand, Bowie's album Blackstar was great. It ranks up there with the great Bowie albums. Some of my favorites are Hunky Dory, Ziggy Stardust, Slow, Lodger. He has a lot of great albums, but none of them are so clearly superior to Blackstar, like Plato's Republic is so clearly superior to his Phaedo. One reason I like Bowie's album is that it is simultaneously a restatement of his great periods and also a new expression of them. I heard from some black guy that Bowie was influenced by Kendrick Lamar's album To Pimp a Butterfly, and I think that's right. Also, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I hear some influence from Brad Meldau's Highway Rider. Anyway, I think the rhythms, freedom, and variety of tones or moods really make Blackstar an interesting album to listen to, and I recommend it. I also recommend Plato's Republic, but really you should read Plato's Apology of Socrates first, and you should read both of them along with Leo Strauss.